Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. I'm Eric Kane alongside Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis, and Austin Price. A big thanks, as always, to our friends Exterior Home Solutions for making this show possible. You can pick up the phone and get a free estimate by dialing 865-524-5888 or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Got a lot of mailbag questions to get into. I think we'll start with Pine. There we go. If I can get my sheet back up. Pine says, Kirby Smart said Georgia's collective fines players. Does UT's collective do the same?
Yes, they have it built into contracts where there's you have to behave yourself. You can't be a moron out there in the public sphere and it'd be okay. So yeah, there's built-in clauses. I would say most collectives have that. I think Georgia really started to enforce that more than other schools, probably because they had so many hubs. I mean, it became comical at one point. Like, it was just like, it's like the Oprah, like, you get a ticket and you get a ticket and you get a ticket. And I think that's why they kind of were bound to try to, kind of slow some of the roll down in Athens.
Well, and I think Kirby Smart, probably Rob announced that yesterday because everybody's wanting to know what the punishment is. And so everybody's thinking, oh, okay, so they got to go out and do some extra conditioning. Well, that doesn't make anybody on the football staff mad because they're in better shape because they've got to do extra conditioning. So what's the real punishment there? It's it was a little bit of a PR statement from Kirby Smart to say, hey, here's part of the punishment that we're doing. We're taking money out of their pocket.
Yeah, I was going to say probably, I mean, I don't know this, but I would say it would probably be more accurate to say they withhold some funds as opposed to they fine them. I mean, I don't think they're. Yeah. I don't think any Georgia players are writing checks back to the NIL.
No, they're being withheld for, a deduction in whatever they've got going on there. But again, I think everybody's got, I don't know if you call it a moral clause or what you call it, Austin. Everybody has something in there that says, hey, if you're a meathead, then you do something dumb out there, then you're going to have there's going to be consequences to your pocketbook as a way to make sure everything is, you guys are behaving the right way.
Well, and it also gives a school a chance, and the collective a chance as an out, right? Like if a kid's not behaving and they just kind of want to get rid of that kid anyway, like it's easier just to go, oh, money's gone for good. You've violated the terms of the deal, blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, kids out of here.
Yeah, it's a business. You're making a business contract, a business deal. So you have to uphold your end. They have to uphold their end. You don't uphold yours, the contract becomes null and void.
Yes.
Simple as that.
We'll go to Athrun next. Is the team excited about the video game coming out this week?
Well, yeah, I mean, who's not, right? I mean, like, as far as especially if you're a kid or if you're just someone that grew up in, our era, like, and you played it many moons ago. I mean, I think everybody is excited. Kids have been excited. Kids have been playing it ever since it came out.
I know Hubs has got it, AP, but do you have it?
And no, I do not. If it was in front of me, I'd love to play it. I'm not going to go out and, like somebody said, I guess somebody posted on the board, like, I went up bought a PS5. Like, I'm not going to go out and buy a PS5 just to play the game. Now, again, if it was in front of me, I'd love to play it, just like I'd love to play PGA Tour 2024 or whatever. Like,
if I had a PS5, I'd buy it, but I'm not going to go out and buy one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but I would love to play the game. Not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, like, I talked to, one of the recruits, on Tuesday night, and I said, man, I heard from you in a while, and he goes, I've just been playing these video games, man. That's just kind of where all these kids are. They're just like, honed in on, competing and playing as one.
A couple of recruiting questions here from Athrun. Thoughts on Sanders taking a couple more visits?
I mean, it does surprise me. I said that a week or two ago. I'd be surprised, and I am surprised. Again, when I talked to the Sanders family on Tuesday night, they had nothing locked in. So no deadlocked visits in. Several schools were pushing them to come, one more time, give them another chance, give them another shot. We'll see if that happens. But it does surprise me just because they took so many visits from basically February through June. It surprises me that they would, decide to go back out on the road again. To me, I think you've seen all you need to see, but I mean, for whatever reason, they still may take a visit or two. We'll see what happens. Tennessee would love to get David back in here next week for that 27th. And, get him hanging around Ethan Utley and George McIntyre and stuff. So I am surprised by it, though.
5 commitment timelines that we know of right now. Over under, Tennessee gets 3.5 of those 5.
I'm gonna go. Who are we talking about here?
Well, the 5 that
we got.
We just
got Gas, Shady, Onus, and David. There's only 4 that we know about. I guess you're talking about Gaston too. I'm sticking to my guns. I think they're getting Shady. I think they're getting Gas. I think they're getting Onus, and I think they're getting David Sanders as of right now. So I would go over on that. They're not going to. I don't think they're going to get Juan Gaston, but again, Juan doesn't talk, so my stance there hasn't changed either. Like, who knows with that kid?
And then lastly here from Athrun, where does Tennessee turn for running back now to pair with Baker?
DeJuan Morris. That's where I would. That's where I think that this is going to be headed. Like, he'll be here next week. I think Tennessee's going to turn it up on him. I think Tennessee always loved DeJuan Morris. I think the offensive staff always loved DeJuan Morris, but they already had Justin Baker committed when Darrell Sims got here, Brent, and they wanted to go bigger back. And they that's why you saw them look at bigger backs. And then once they kind of said, we don't have to have a bigger back, then DeJuan Morris became way more real. And I think that's why you saw them work hard to make sure he, didn't do anything funny at the end of June, would come see them in July. And it certainly seems like we're on the cusp of that.
Yeah, we'll see if they get here. And again, I think it's just a shift in kind of what it's kind of like what we saw in recruiting a little bit of the offensive line, Austin, and it was all about tackles.
Until it wasn't.
And then it became, well, wait a minute, we feel better about our tackles coming out of spring if we compare them with David Sanders and, guys like that at the tackle position. They weren't going to stop recruiting tackles, but they needed more inside guys than they needed tackles in terms of building depth out in this class on the offensive line. So it's just a change, I think a little bit of change in mindset at the running back position.
Let's go to Steve 113434. If you had to make up an entire football team by using just one player from the current team to be cloned to play all positions, who would that player be? And who from a previous team would you pick, Rob?
Eric Berry from a previous
Eric
team.
Berry was the first one that came to mind from a previous team. What about from the current team?
I'm going James.
Brew McCoy, somebody type like that. I mean, he was a great edge, outside linebacker in high school. So I'd go Brew. I mean, that's a tough question.
I thought James Pierce as well. Brent, my number 2 might, and this is unfair because he hasn't played a game yet. My number 2 might be Boo because of the versatility. Brent, what do you think?
I'm thinking Bugs Bunny in the cartoon where he's playing right field, center field, first base, second base, and the whole 9 yards. That was my thought in the question.
There was no Andy Griffith.
No, it
reference you go to.
It was all about
Barty wasn't the two-way guy in high school.
No, I love that episode of Bugs Bunny when he was playing baseball.
Tubbs is a big Looney Tunes guy, Rob.
I am Looney Tunes because I'm loony. Yeah, I mean, it is unfair to say Boo Carter, but athletically, Boo Carter can play both sides of the ball. You'd love to see what he's like with the ball in his hands, and obviously he can play on defense. I mean, again, it's a very unrealistic question, obviously, but I think what he's asking is who are the best athletes on the team. And I think Boo Carter is certainly one of the best athletes. I think James Pierce is an unbelievable athlete as well. So I'd probably go there. McCoy makes a lot of sense, I guess. But I'm with you guys. I think Eric Berry, when you look at the history, Dale Carter would go into that category for me. But I'm old, so we'll stay it in times where everybody listening knows who we're talking about, and I'll go Eric Berry with Rob Lewis there.
I think what he's asking is which defensive lineman do you want to see run the football? And so give me Elijah Simmons. Okay.
I saw them ask this question last week over on Eagle Quest, and they said, Martin Kernut said Eric Kane or the former players.
Eagle Quest. I'm sure the subscriptions are through the roof over there.
They instead of Destin over there, they ask about North Myrtle Beach. Where's the favorite place to be? North Myrtle Beach.
You're wrong on so many fronts.
Carsoom's expensive, so I'm sure it's a better destination there. Volnado says this is the best team we've had going into the preseason since when?
2016.
Is that the year Butch beat Florida and Georgia and lost to South Carolina and Vandy? That yes, I would say 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Dobbs, established quarterback, Hurd,
Derek Barnett,
Derek Barnett.
I mean, a lot of NFL dudes on that team. A lot of NFL dudes. So yeah, I go 16.
A lot of NFL dudes when Pruitt was here. That 2020 offense, what was it that had what?
Did you mean not for long? There were a lot of not for long dudes here when Pruitt was here.
Wasn't the stat something like 8 or 9 of the starting offensive players for the 2020 season are in the NFL right now, or something like that? Obviously, wasn't coached well enough.
Well, go back and look at Dooley's offense from that one year that he got fired. I mean, how many NFL guys were on that offense that South and Siri cheated out of a bowl game?
Lfvol says, if you could choose only one to enable us to take another step in recruiting the elite out-of-state players, would you A, increase NIL donations, or B, upgrade the quality of recruiters on staff?
AP, you're the expert, but I would say neither. I would say win a bunch of football games. I mean, how much do you hear about Alabama and Georgia's NIL?
You don't. You don't.
I'm sure
and because of
they
Nico,
keep up with the Joneses.
Because of Nico and the whole perceived, huge contract, everybody just kind of throws Tennessee in with, well, they just buy everybody. But the reality is I can tell you 15 guys on the roster hubs where kids took less money to come here versus bigger money offers elsewhere. And there have been guys that have stayed that were on the roster, or guys that came from the portal for the same thing. And then there are some where Tennessee was the biggest offer, and they went out and just got a guy. So, I mean, there's several different ways to get to the destination, and it's not the same highway every time.
Yeah, and I think I think winning is the one that takes that catalyst is always in there. I think there are players, baseball players playing for Tony Vitello that probably could have got more money elsewhere, but they wanted to play for a winner, and they wanted to play in that culture and in that environment. You heard Kirby Smart say during his rounds in Dallas, hey, we don't pay big money up front. Guys get money after they earned it through the program. Now, I don't believe that to be 100% true necessarily, but that's an easy thing to sell when you take a recruit by your trophy case, and it's the new championship trophy. It's not a crystal ball that says Sears National Title Trophy on it, right? It's the new one. That's an easier sell to kids from that way. So I think Rob's right. I think winning is the biggest catalyst in all of that. I think it supersedes the most elite recruiters, and I think it in some ways can supersede a checkbook.
We'll move on now. Curious of the group's thoughts on Danny White and the job that he has done during his time here. Can you guys speak specifically on the job that he's done? What makes him so effective? How attractive he may be for other schools, organizations, and the headhunt at some point down the road? And then he says, realizing he makes a lot of money to be here. What makes Danny White so effective, Brent?
I think he lets his people work. I think he lets people go do their job. I don't think he's a micromanager. I don't think, and Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I don't think he's hanging around Rick Barnes's basketball practices. I don't think he's going to Tony Vitello and, micromanaging and getting, involved in that. He knows what's going on with his programs. But I think he lets his coaches go coach, and he's got good coaches. Some, Josh Heupel he hired, others he did not. And I think, and I don't want to take anything away from what Danny White has accomplished. He's growing the budget. They're building great facilities. They're obviously winning in a lot of sports. I think the experience for the student athlete is really good. Obviously, the NIL stuff has been good for Tennessee. There's no doubt about that. But there was more good with this athletic department than people realized when Danny White was hired. The reason it was perceived as an absolute train wreck is because football was an absolute train wreck. And Danny White and Donde Plowman deserve a lot of credit for navigating football through the NCAA traps and issues along the way to help get that. But, I mean, Rick Barnes was here. Tony Vitello was here. The golf coach, Brendan Webb, was here. Now, he's made a good hire, I think, in cross country. But the volleyball coach, they had a great year this past year. They were here. The Weeklies were here. That there are a lot of things in place to be successful from a coaching standpoint. But I think Danny's done a good job of uniting everybody and letting them go do their job. That's my perception of it. I mean, anybody else can jump in, but I think that's the best thing he's done is he's let people go work.
I would tell you he's hired good people around him, which is what you're saying.
His internal staff, his board, if you will.
Yeah, you look at Ryan Alpert, you look at Cam Walker. I'll tell you who deserves. I know Danny gets the credit because he's the AD, but the person that's really behind all of the new kind of like look, presentation at Neyland Stadium, like when the tees lit up at nighttime and fireworks and all that, is Alicia Longworth, and she's been fantastic. So, yes. I mean, I think it's just a matter of putting just really good people in place. He is super competitive. Danny wants to win in everything, and I think that's the one thing if you're a Tennessee fan, and you can kind of put your head on the pillow at night and go, we've got an AD that isn't going to shortchange trying to win. He is a guy that's super competitive. He's going to do whatever it takes. He was proactive about Tony Vitello before Tony got to where he's at right now, right? Like where he's a national championship coach. He was working to get that one done. This is a guy that, again, surrounds himself with good people, and those people have done a nice job as well, and they all deserve some credit as well.
Well, and he's about all sports, Rob. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I mean, I'm sure we can all have a story like this. This super small thing. Tennessee gets placed in Charlotte for the NCAA tournament. NCAA has like this theoretical circle they draw, around your campus to where your site is, and if you're so close, you bus over. Rick Barnes didn't want to bus his team over. Told Danny White, boom, charter plane. And like I'm saying, I'm sure we all have stories like that about coaches going recruiting or whatever. What do you need? What do you guys need? And I think that to me is like, I'm not saying everybody has a blank check, but what do you need to be successful? What do you guys need? And I think that's kind of how coaches look at the AD. That it's a resource.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Let's go to that Vol guy with the MLB draft officially over. How do you think Tony Vitello and staff are feeling? Seems like Tennessee came out about as well as it could have hoped for, so they've got to be excited about the players that are likely to have on campus. Baseball staff's excited. This is probably the 3 days every single year that you fear the most, because if you're really good at your job, like Tony and Frank and Josh and all his entire staff, you're bringing in and signing the best of the best. And we were joking about it in the group chat. I mean, Tennessee signed like 5 or 6 shortstops. There's versatility in their games, but you sign so many shortstops that are ranked inside the top 100, 150, because 2 or 3 of them might get drafted. And when that happens, you're going to be okay. And that's kind of where Tennessee is right now. Number 1 overall signing class for the class of 2024. 5 of those guys were drafted. I think 4 of the 5 are going to go on and sign pro contracts, and those guys being the 2 shortstops, Lucas Rameriz, obviously son of Manny Rameriz, who I never really saw being here. I didn't know if he'd be drafted, but he never screamed college guy, in my opinion, and Ethan Wagner there. I do see Anson Siebert's not signing a pro deal, and that's probably a good move for him because he's ranked 108th overall, and he got pick number 420. But anyway, my point is they're excited. They knew that they held on some guys like Jay Abernathy, Tegan Coons, a couple other guys that they really, really like. So they're pumped. They're excited. You will lose Eric Radicek, the transfer portal commit from Niagara, the first baseman. It wasn't a matter of they just assumed that he was gone or anything like that. It was if he's drafted, he's probably gone, but there was a slim chance that he was going to be drafted. He got drafted. He wants to play professional baseball. He's 23 years old. He's not going to improve his stock and be a first-rounder by coming back and playing 1 year of SEC baseball. Just not going to happen. So he's going to go on, but Tennessee's got a lot of internal options. So all that, they're excited. They think they did really, really well. I believe I can vol. How many in-state
starting 9?
Say what?
Give us your starting 9. If I've got to give percentages, 400 years out, you've got to give your starting 9 350
Reese
days.
Chapman, right field. Hunter Ensley, center field. Left field, I don't know. I'll come back to it. Third base is Dean Curley. Shortstop is Gavin Keelan. Second base is Ariel. First base is...
That's the one I want to know about.
I'll go Bargo for right now, but again, there's versatility there. Catcher's Cannon Peebles. DH, Andrew Fisher. Left field, maybe left field, Andrew Fisher, and then somebody else DH. Now there's tons of options there. Liam Doyle will be a starter. I think Nate Snead will have the opportunity to start. I think Tegan Coons can start. I think some of these freshman arms, Tanner Wiggins, Brandon Arvidsson could start potentially. Thomas Crabtree. Yeah, I mean, we can go on and on.
Great job, Kane. I will give you a lot of credit. You've known all those recruits. I didn't know not a damn one you said. I'm over here like, sure, good, way to go.
Here's what we do know. The first 3 weeks of the season, come next February, Tony Vitello will have a different looking lineup every game that they play till he figures out where everybody's at. Because that's what he does. In general, but that's definitely what he's going to do with this remade roster that he's got in hand here. So it'll be kind of fun to see where all guys get moved around to see who can perform where and what it settles into as they get to conference play.
The good thing about baseball too is, I mean, you play multiple spots. Like that like Dean Curley can play across the diamond. He can play any spot you want him to in the infield. So we'll get one more here ahead of the break. I believe I can vol. Any in-state kids besides Morris that Tennessee is after, AP?
I mean, they're still recruiting Shakai Mills Knight, but I mean, you're not going to take both of those guys. And no, that's about it.
All right. We will get a break right here. We'll come back with plenty more of your mailbag questions. But first, let's get a word from Mark Packer and Exterior Home Solutions.
Severe weather can strike at any time in East Tennessee, and Mother Nature can do severe damage to the first and most important line of defense that you and your family have against Mother Nature, and that is your roof. Whenever she strikes, make sure that you call the people that I call. Make sure you trust the people that I trust, and that's my friends at Exterior Home Solutions, because they're more than friends, they're truly family.
Exterior Home Solutions, you get a free estimate by dialing 865-524-5888 or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. They've been local and trusted since 1999. Volunteered 87, AP or King Ray. Do you have any insight into Sanders' tour later this month? Did his mom, coaches, etc. join him on most officials, or do you think that there is a chance to see the schools? I don't know, those words are weird. Anything else that led to his decision to see schools again? I know you already touched on this a little bit earlier, AP, but reset it.
Yeah, King Ray, I think that let's call him that from now on. Mom and Dad have been on every visit. Grandma and Grandpa went on all the official visits. The brothers and sisters, I think it's just sisters actually, went on all the official visits and a lot of the unofficial visits. So it's been a family affair. And again, like, we'll see if he gets out next week. Again, nothing's set in stone, which means it could be a big nothing. But I mean, I would lean to probably him going somewhere. Tennessee's certainly going to push hard there to get him here next week, and we'll see if anybody else gets him on campus. When things open back up for that quick 7-day window.
Rob, who are Coach Rick Barnes' 2 or 3 closest friends in the coaching profession?
Guys that I know he talks to a lot. Izzo, for sure. Calipari, he and Calipari are tight. And I would say Mark Few. Off the top of my head, those are the 3 guys that he talks to pretty frequently.
So you still talk to Popovich a lot, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't, but I know those are 3 names that'll just come up in casual conversation. I was talking to Izzo about the rules committee, blah, blah. I was talking to Cal, SEC meetings, blah, blah. But I mean, those are 3 guys. I think just because, they have, common issues that, and they're old guys. I mean, let's be honest. And they also, have things that they want that impact all of them. They have common ground.
I tell you what, I don't care if you cover the NBA, college basketball, whatever. If you could get your hands on Rick Barnes's phone to go through that contact list, you would be able to talk to anybody in the game of any note that you wanted to talk to. Maybe Rick doesn't talk to him all the time, Rob, but he can get a hold of anybody in basketball anytime he wants to.
I mean, it's literally incredible. And you talk about the game 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. I mean, you talk about 6 degrees with Rick Barnes. I mean, you can go from James Naismith to whoever the best 14-year-old in the country is right now. I mean,
crazy.
And then you just got Hubs excited. You said Kevin Bacon, the air up there. He loves that movie. That's one of his.
Kevin Bacon did he play one of Opie's school friends? Was that why Hupper did he guest star?
He did not make his start.
He played Arnold.
How about Matlock? Did he make it on the Matlock at all? Maybe?
I don't think he was in Matlock. I don't like Matlock. I'm out of Matlock. Once we saw a colored TV version of Andy Griffith, I was done.
No Three's Company with Ralph Farley.
What season is that?
Season 6, I think, is when it became colored.
See, I agree with Andy Griffith in color, but once you Matlock is not Andy Griffith's show.
I know. I don't want to do a back-to-back double feature of Matlock and Murder, She Wrote, which happens in my house quite frequently because my wife likes both of those shows. So I'm upstairs working because they're both on some Hallmark alternative channel.
I was watching Knots Landing. Keep going here.
Another question here from Volunteered 87. Cainer, who's the biggest surprise of the baseball commits that will seemingly make it to Knoxville? I mentioned Tegan Coons a second ago. Tegan Coons is definitely one of those guys. Braden Krenzel is another one of those guys. Manuel Marin, the shortstop, is one. Jackson Walker from nearby Lenore City. You got Ryler Smart, Aiden Hayes.
A surprise that all those guys came to college as opposed to taking Major League Baseball draft money.
Levi Clark. No, not all those guys, but all those guys that I mentioned, and obviously the ones that were taken. I mean, they were all draft risk. I mean, literally, they all had a bunch of them were ranked and they had opportunities to go. So, not all of those guys, no. But I mean, if I had to pick one, it'd be Tegan Coons. But I was just trying to see a couple other ones that I hadn't mentioned already. They're happy though, for sure. Aikens VFL 24 wants to know: do the players that opt out of NCAA College Football 25 just not be in the game? If so, can they opt in later in the season? Yes, and yes. There's different renditions or updates, and you can opt in later on. Then you can be put in the video game. Are players satisfied with their rankings? Austin, I would assume that some are and a lot aren't. There's Jackson Dart is not happy with the way that he looks in the game. That Clemson offensive lineman over the summer was not happy with how big that he was. I would imagine that some do enjoy it and some obviously don't, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to make them happy with their rankings unless they're 96 and above. Everybody's going to think, I'm better than that. So, I mean, I'd say there's several of them are these rankings are garbage. But you know what? That's why they make updates. Go out and make plays and they'll bump you.
On a team note, are there any players that are going to, for sure, redshirt? Has there been any separation of wide receiver, D-line, and left guard? As far as the redshirt, Brent, I mean, it's something that's quote-unquote tagged at the end of the season, but, I don't know every single one, but a guy like Lindstrom in this signing class, he's going redshirt. You can see that ahead of the time, right? Because there's 13 guys in front of you on the defensive line. There's guys that they go into the season knowing that they're going to redshirt, and then they kind of plan accordingly. As far as the separation on all that type of stuff, there's D-line, there's going to play 13 guys. Left guard, they haven't practiced, so there's no separation there. And then wide receivers kind of in the same boat. I mean, I feel like until they get out there and get into camp, we're not gonna know truly how big that rotation will be at wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfair to say that there's going to be some real summertime separation. I think you got to go out and prove it, in a practice field setting and scrimmage settings and things like that. Remember this about the redshirt deal: you can play in 4 games. I mean, Nico redshirted last year, which I don't think anybody saw was. I mean, if you asked last August, is Nico going to redshirt? I think most people would went, no. I mean, he'll play more than 4 games.
But again, if he was the backup quarterback, it just worked out that way.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I mean, you can play 4 games, and so you can probably end up redshirting more people than you thought you would if you stay healthy. But I mean, I don't. Yeah, there's some guys I'm sure that are like, okay, we don't expect them to play on the offensive line. They're not going to play all those incoming freshmen more than 4 games. So there'll be some guys redshirt. There is every year.
And then towards the end of the season, I know somebody asked Josh Heupel about this, maybe not right after the game, but at some point, like the fact that Nico didn't go in and play in that Missouri blowout loss, because it's towards the end of the year, he can say all he wants to, but in the back of his mind, he's probably like, okay, how many games he played? 2, 3, got Vanderbilt next week. He's like, okay, well, let's just stay with Joe here on the road, because at that point in the season, you do want to preserve a red shirt, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you do, but I mean, I don't think anybody's sitting here going, all right, Nico's going to be here 4 years.
Let's go to Volken. What, if any, position groups on this team are not more talented than they were in 2023? So I think, Rob, when you kind of look, I actually did a Locked On Vols episode about this at some point in the offseason. Sure, you lose experience and everything, and there's maybe some unproven talent like Nico, right? But we'd all sit here and say you probably got more talented at the quarterback position now than you did last year. It's unproven, but we all say Nico. Really, I think that the tight end position comes to mind.
Running back.
Running back comes to mind. But I mean, outside of that, I think Tennessee's probably more talented in just about every position group, right?
Well, I mean, it's the one thing that you would debate, or maybe not the one, there may be more, but the one thing that occurs to me is at wide receiver. I mean, I think they're more talented, but also if you look, they probably had, if we think Brew's going to be drafted, that 22 team had 3, their 3 starters were, NFL guys.
Yeah, I'm thinking just 23, but you're right about 22.
I thought the question was 22.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Good catch there. Maybe you should host this show.
I should host it.
2022. There we go. 2022. Well,
yeah, I mean,
that changes things because 2022 was a really good football team.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'm was with you. I mean, I'm with you because I think Nico's more talented than Hooker, but I mean, look at what he did. I mean, look at he had the body of work. So my point about wide receiver was I still think you could say they're more talented in 24 because I think that's a good argument. But you also had 3 NFL guys in 22. But how many? We're just talking about talent. I mean, Mike Matthews is a freshman, but how talented is he? I mean, how good is Brazil? I mean, I think there's a lot of talent at wideout, despite the fact that 22 was loaded.
Yeah, I mean, again, this team is clearly deeper than the 22 team. Okay, I mean, I think you can say that. So you look at the wide receiver group, and you look at if you go 6 deep, AP, that's a very different look in 24, much more talented than if you went 6 deep in 22. But if you're taking just the top 3 versus this year's top 3, I think you'd like Jalen Hyatt in his offense. Listen, I think Nico can be better than Hendon Hooker. We just don't know yet. And again, this is where do you put experience into the word talent? If you're talking just raw talent, maybe that's a little different equation. I have a hard time not throwing the experience factor into the equation. I think Lance Hurd has a lot of ability, but Darnell Wright was a top 10 pick. I mean, they're not a wash to me because Darnell Wright was a top 10 pick. Now, they might be a wash at the end of Hurd's career at Tennessee. But in terms of right now, if I'm comparing the two, I'm saying Darnell Wright because I know what the end result of Darnell Wright's career was at Tennessee. He was a top 10 NFL draft pick.
And same thing with the tight end position. Ethan Davis is physically way more gifted than that of Jacob Warren. But we've never seen Ethan Davis play tight end before. I mean, literally, like, extended period of time. But we saw Jacob Warren play for 4 years. And so, yeah, I see what you're saying in that regard.
I think this defensive line across the board is better. I mean, I think
I agree.
When you look at that, I think that one's pretty obvious. That position is.
We'll go on to another one. With the transfer portal additions and returning roster, should we expect similar success? In parentheses, regional host for the Vols baseball team in 2025. Yeah, I don't ever like predicting Omaha because I think it's so difficult, but I mean, track record proves itself, right? So if you predicted Tennessee going to Omaha in 2025, nobody would bat an eye. But yes, I feel comfortable saying I think Tennessee can be a top 16 team in the country. I think Tennessee can be a top 8 team in the country. So, yeah, I would go ahead and expect Tennessee to be hosting in postseason play, for regionals and maybe even supers. Let's go to StumpJumper. What's the most infuriating, disappointing moment you've had watching Tennessee football?
Oh, the block kick in 90 in the Alabama game. The thud hurt. The thud hurt around Neyland Stadium. And that one will always be up there. Pick a Hail Mary against Florida that they gave up. 13 men on the field against LSU.
That one's mine.
And I love this guy. I'm not trying to bring him up in a negative light, but how about Corey Anderson fumbling going into the end zone?
I was getting ready to say that one.
Yeah.
And again, great guy. I mean, I'm not bringing that up to, throw stones at him.
David Palmer's 2-point conversion in 93.
Yeah, for that tie. Yeah, that's an ugly one. Obviously, I don't know if there's a moment, but I mean, losing the opportunity to go to the Rose Bowl and play for a national title in 2001 by not getting it done against LSU.
Memphis 96.
Yeah, Memphis 96. Oh, geez, that was
losing a chance to go play in the Rose Bowl in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, you got South Carolina 2016. You got South Carolina 22.
Or Sugar Bowl. At the very end of the season, it was Sugar Bowl was on the line. Yeah, my fault.
You got, I mean, losing to Kentucky when they were playing a wide receiver at quarterback. I mean, we can go on and on. I mean,
Mount Cody.
Mount Cody.
There was a couple there from the Dooley era where it's just like, what is like? That was like when I was in high school, middle school.
Just wasting Cordero Patterson.
I mean, the 13 men on the field was one of those. You won. Oh no, you didn't win. Yeah. That was for fans. That was the euphoria to just absolute what just happened on that deal there.
Didn't he ask best and worst, Eric?
No, he said infuriating, disappointing moment.
Okay, period.
Yeah.
And then there were 2 adjectives. I thought.
Well, I've made everybody mad here on the podcast here at the 38-minute mark.
The best moment is Alabama 2022. So
that's right up your alley.
It was Hubs' wheelhouse.
Negativity.
Hubs was like, hang on. He reached down in his desk drawer and pulled out his folder.
He looked like he sounded like Eric reading off all those names from baseball. Do we even know those guys are real names? He was like Jeff Smith, Bobby Wagner, and Miller Fredrickson.
Go Vols 182 says the Prince of Bradley County says Boo Carter is the best DB since Eric Berry. Do you agree? I think we need to see Boo Carter play in a football game first. That's just my opinion.
But also, I mean, how high is that bar? What are we talking about? Cam Sutton? I'm sure I'm missing somebody. I'm just trying to think.
Yeah, I mean, it is not saying he's as good as Eric Berry, but who since Eric Berry do you go?
Man, he's got to be better. He's got to be better than that guy.
Right, that guy was a great DB. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's that high of a bar, unless I'm just totally blanking.
Yeah, I mean, Alontae Taylor may be your best defensive back since Eric Berry.
There are lots of guys that are playing in the league. Justin Coleman, Emmanuel Mosley, but when they were here, they got roasted, and then they got to the league and got these $30 and $40 million contracts. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with Rob. The bar's not super, super high.
DMB
let's see him do something first.
Yes.
DMB UT 41 says, do you expect Carter or Tellander to start opposite of Pili? AP, I would say Carter, but they're both going to play a ton. So, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter.
Correct.
Let's go to MegaVols. How is the culture right now? Any guy that's not meshing? I know these things never get brought up, which is until something officially happens, which sometimes is frustrating. Hope for a good season without any drama with the players, especially like 2022 with Banks. I'm not making fun of the question of the poster, but why on earth, when things are going so great, AP or Brent, would you come to the board and say, yeah, well, this backup over here, he had to miss practice because, he forgot his cleats or something. I mean, there's no point in putting that out there when things are going good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just silly.
Well, And again, I mean, like, they're not all holding hands singing "Kumbaya."
No,
okay?
there's fights all the time. They're brothers.
That's just not what happens. But I think when you're talking about culture, I think this team, I think they're collectively invested for the same thing. I mean, I think that their goals for the most part are all the same. So I don't think you have a ton of dissension, distraction. And I mean, listen, you don't have Rob, you don't have a quarterback controversy. So that's the first thing to unite your team, right? You don't have people picking sides like we saw in 05, which destroyed that team when you were half were team Ainge and half were team Clausen. So you don't have that going on. You got, I mean, half of your defense up front's like 23 years old, right? I mean, so this is a pretty mature team. And I think they're bringing some young guys along. I don't see big issues brewing out there because they're playing a lot of bodies. And again, I think everybody knows kind of who the alpha males on this team are, which makes things generally go pretty well.
Yeah. And
now, if you don't win, who knows what happens when you get to October? But right now, I mean, they're all singing a pretty good tune, right?
Yeah, and like you said, Hubbard, I mean, it's easy in this time of year, but it kind of struck me the other day when me and you and AP we met up with Omari and Keenan and Cooper, and did some just some preseason interviews that just kind of hit me. When those three guys are three your leaders in your locker room, I mean, you probably got to, that's probably a pretty good thing. I mean, you could just tell, talking to all those dudes, I mean, they're having a good time right now. I mean, it's fun. Being a part of Tennessee football is fun.
Yeah.
Right now, and that is not always the case here.
And those three are grown men.
Yes,
I mean,
mature.
Those three are grown men.
You're not talking. I mean, you're not talking to a freshman, a kid anymore. I mean, that I'm not saying that they're as worldly as Eric Kane or anything, but those guys are. I mean, they're grown ups.
Well, I mean, some of those. You look at those guys. AP. I guess all of them could be second-year NFL players at this point.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah, they could.
As AP likes to say, they could rent cars.
One of them can. But I mean, they're just mature, and I think that helps.
MarketSquareStreaker says now the UT athletic department is riding high and has been for years now. Who is the first coach to depart in the future? Always looking for that other shoe to drop. I'm going to say Rick Barnes because he will retire at some point. I think that's the easy answer, right?
Yeah, but I don't know that Rick Barnes is looking to shut it down anytime soon.
True.
Right?
I mean, I don't think asking if anybody's going to leave for another job. I mean, I don't see that. You can never say never.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see anybody leaving for another job.
Again, it goes back to the question we had earlier about Danny White. They're getting the resources they need to win from in-house, from the collective. I mean, they are giving everything they need. They're not sitting there at the end of the day going, man, we don't have a chance here. Like some other people around the country are saying right now, like we can't compete in recruiting. We can't compete in roster retention. We don't have this. We don't have that. I mean, this is a really good experience right now for student athletes. It's also a really good experience for coaches. You got to go win, but in terms of people looking to jettison out of town, pretty good gigs they got right here. I don't think this is a stepping stone department. I think this is a destination department for coaches.
Couple more here, and then we'll call it quits on this Thursday edition of the Mailbag podcast. Go to Nashville 615. What is the most important home game this season and most important game overall? Feels like last year South Carolina was circled by everybody for a revenge game.
For me, it's the first meaningful one. It's Florida. You've got to, before you can, beat Alabama 2 times in a row in Neyland, you got to beat Florida. And so I go Florida. It's a team you should beat. It's a team, you were better than a year ago, and they beat you in Gainesville. So to me, it's one step at a time, and I'd go Florida.
Overall game for me is Oklahoma, and then home game would be Alabama. But I get your reasoning for Florida.
For me, it's all Florida. I mean, you beat them at home, what? Twice
since 04.
Yeah, since 04. Okay. I mean, I'll take that one because I think that's a tone setter, and I just that's one you got to win at the house. So
Hub's got to see it, baby. Got to see it.
I mean, considering they've lost that one every way possible, and in their quote dominant performance in 22,
they almost gave
Florida
it away.
was throwing into the end zone to win the game after recovering an onside kick.
They literally tried to give it away. Adam Sparks looked over to me and said, "They're going to lose this game, right?" When they got the onside kick, I'm like, "Yeah, yes,
like, go finish it." So that for me, it's Florida. Rob Lewis, I don't know, you may have a different one, but for me, it's Florida.
Yeah, I say Florida just because it's first. I mean, because if you, I don't want to be negative, Nancy, but I mean, if you lose that one, I mean, we've all been around. We know this town, this fan base, and if you lose that one, it gets ugly and negative in a hurry.
All right, it's football time in Tennessee. Why in the world would Lucas Rameriz, go pro after being taken in the 17th round? That was not a good decision. Well, his father's Manny Rameriz, not coming here to play school, doesn't necessarily. I mean, he's going to be okay. I never thought that he was going to be if he was going to be a college guy, not a very long time college guy. Talented player, can break from the left side. Obviously, it's in his genes. I didn't think that he would be drafted, but I thought that he'd go on and play pro ball anyway. So he'll be okay. Just kind of knowing that he's going to be okay in terms of a financial standpoint. That's kind of expected for me. And last one, let's go to SlappyVol. Fact or fiction? James Pierce will have more sacks in a 2-year span, last year and this year combined, than anyone in UT history. He put in parentheses, Reggie White had 22, Derek Barnett had 23. Do you think James Pierce can break 22-23? Fact or fiction?
What do you have, 10?
Yeah, the question is, does he get 12 or more this year, or 13 or more this year?
13 or more? I'll take the under just because it's not. I mean, just because it's so high. But I won't be shocked if he does it.
Well, he Tennessee to me has got to make the playoff. He needs the extra games because
now if that happens, I'm saying the 12-game regular season, I'll take under.
He's not going to play a bowl game. He's not going to play a generic bowl game.
Yeah, he will not. I mean, if they don't make the playoffs, he's going to play 12 games. I'd probably say the under. I'll say this. I was looking up some numbers for some of the positional preview stuff. It amazes me that Derek Barnett has not been more effective, productive in the NFL. I mean, that guy had double-digit sacks 3 straight years at Tennessee, which is just I'm surprised that I know he's still in the league. I know he did some things for the Texans when he got moved, and maybe a new address helps him. But I'm just surprised that he's not been a more effective player in the National Football League than what he was, because he was a series wrecker when he was at Tennessee. Really impressive guy. Sorry, Kane. Go to the last question there.
Remember before opt-outs when he played the Music City Bowl to end his career?
Yeah, he also did it to establish the sacks record too.
Yeah, don't see that often anymore. Last one.
I mean, he was playing in the next to last series of the game when Tennessee was in complete control because they were doing, and I don't blame him. I mean, I have no problem. Go get the record, tee off on him every play. That's your only responsibility. Is just go hit the quarterback every play. Sorry.
Last one, fact or fiction. This team will give up less points than any other Heupel-led team. Points against has gone down each of the 3 years. 378 points allowed, 294 points allowed, to 264. So, fact or fiction, Tennessee will give up less points this year than any other Heupel team.
I'm going to take fact on that one. And here's my rationale. One, the depth of that defensive line and the quality of that defensive line, I do think they're going to be good at linebacker. I know there's questions in the secondary, but I like them in the front seven. And 2, I think some of the offenses they're playing, Austin, you got some questions about. NC State may be a great offense by the time they get to the middle of the year. I don't know what they're going to look like early in the year with all their new parts. Kentucky's got a new quarterback. Arkansas's got a new quarterback. You got a young quarterback in the Oklahoma game. So, Carson Beck at Georgia is going to be really good. I think Milroe will fit in and fine with this offense at Alabama. But, I mean, what's Florida's offense look like, right? So, for me, I think when you add all those things together, I'm going to take this will be statistically the best defense under Tim Banks.
I was told Tim Banks was terrible by the general's quarters. So, even suggesting that they've been good was frowned upon. But
So you're taking fiction?
no, I'm taking fact. I agree with you. I just think that
you're
goes
just
across
carrying
the
water.
board. I think the secondary is the key. Like I think that the defensive line and the linebackers can make the secondary even better. But I think they're naturally more athletic. If Jermon McCoy is who Tennessee hopes he is, and Ricky Gibson takes a step in year 2, then when you pair it with a healthy Pili and the defensive line that's really pretty salty, I think Tennessee's defense can be really, really good.
What do you got, Rob Lewis?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they're going to be better. I mean, defensive line for sure. I mean, I think way better. And like Eric said, I mean, pointed out, I know people on the board are talking. I mean, Tim Banks' defense gotten better every year. I mean, I think talent's a big part of that. I think they've gotten more talented every year.
All right. Appreciate all you guys sending in your questions for the mailbag edition of the show, presented by Exterior Home Solutions, 865-524-5888, online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Local and trusted since 1999. They are who we trust at Volquest.com. We'll be back on Tuesday for the Volquest podcast. If you're watching on YouTube right now, put in this promo code. You get 2 months for $1 access over at Volquest.com. A lot going on, recruiting, baseball, football, SEC Media Days, of course, fall camp right around the corner. All that and more you can find at Volquest.com. For Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis, Austin Price, I'm Eric Cain. Appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Volquest Mailbag Podcast.